Welcome to our very first week together with Foundations of Algebra. We're going to start off pretty simple. We're going to go back to adding and subtracting, and what we're going to do in algebra is start looking at terms. So they're adding letters to math, and I know that's going to kind of confuse us a little bit, but don't worry, this will be really easy. We're going to go back to addition and subtraction, and I want to look at the basics. A lot of times when we see positives and negatives, it gets confusing and we don't know what to do with those numbers. When when you see 4 minus 2, you're like, oh, that's easy. But when you start seeing -2 plus 4, it's like, what do I do? What answer is going to have what sign? And I want to keep this really simple for you. I had a good friend of mine show me a trick, and it goes back to when we first learned how to add positive numbers. When you first start with addition or subtraction, they keep it really simple. And I want to go back to things like 2 plus 2. Like, how did you know that 2 plus 2 equals positive 4? How did you know that? We don't even think about it. We just do it, right? Well, when we're adding numbers like 2 plus 2, we know the answer is positive because both of those numbers had the same sign. These are both positive numbers, and that's how we were introduced to numbers. Well, when you start looking at signs changing, it's the same thing with negatives. If I take two numbers, -2 plus -2, they both have the same sign, and they're going to give me a negative result. So if you add two negatives, you get a bigger negative. You add two positives, you get a bigger positive. So the saying goes, and this is what somebody taught me, and it really has helped me out with this, is same sign, add and keep. Okay, same sign, you just add them and keep the sign. Like 2 plus 2, they were positive, you kept it positive 4. -2 plus -2, they're both negative, we keep it -4. Okay, so that's easy, right? Same sign, add and keep. If the signs are different, that's where something happens here, and it's always subtraction. Whenever I'm given two numbers with different signs, let's say I had 4 minus 2. Now this is just, it looks like basic subtraction, but these are really two numbers with different signs. And what I want to think about on this is, how do I know when I subtract these 4 minus 2? You just know that, right? It's 4 minus 2 is 2. Well, how did we know it was positive 2? Well, we know that because the bigger number was positive 4. And that brings us to the second way that we're going to remember this, and it is different signs subtract every time, no matter what. So if I have two numbers, let's say I switch the order here and I said -2 plus 4. Different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. So when you see that these numbers have different signs, in your head you're thinking subtract. I know how to do 4 minus 2. Okay, that's easy. It's 2. Keep the sign of the larger number. The larger number was 4. So whenever you encounter these scenarios where the signs are different and you have a number, like let's say I had something a little bit crazier like -20 plus 5. Okay, well, I know the difference between 20 and 5. I can just say, okay, those are different signs. Subtract those two numbers. What do I get? 20 minus 5. So I'm always thinking different signs, subtraction. 20 minus 5 is 15. Keep the sign of the larger number. The bigger number here was 20 and it was negative. So keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. So that's a real easy way for us to remember adding and subtracting. Same sign, add and keep. Different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. And if I could play this in a song, it would help you remember it. But I always, in my head, when I'm doing this, that's where I always go. Okay, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. It helps you kind of make sense of numbers that have different signs. So when you see them and your head tries to do like mental gymnastics, this will kind of narrow your focus. And algebra, this is where we start throwing in variables. In other words, letters like 1x plus 2x. We're going to start adding and subtracting whole numbers with, positives and negatives. But we're also going to look at something we call like terms. And what that looks like is, say I have a variable, and a lot of times we use x. Let's say I have 2x plus 3x. Those are what we call like terms. And in algebra, for me to be able to add something like this, they have to be like terms. 2x's and 3x's, you notice they have the same variable. Of course, my handwriting looks different, but those are both x's. It's kind of like adding apples to apples. If I think of a variable as an object, like an apple here, you can add apples to apples and you can get more apples. I would say, okay, 2x plus 3x. Think of a variable as an item, like 2 oranges plus 3 oranges, 2 apples plus 3 apples. These are like terms. They can be added together, and I'd say, oh, okay, that's 5 apples, or 5 whatever the variable stands for. We don't really know here, but that is what we call like terms. And I had a college professor say you can only add apples to apples. If you can't add apples to oranges and get apple oranges, it doesn't work that way. So when we deal with terms that are not like terms, like let's say I had 2x plus 3y, I cannot add those together because that's apples and oranges. They don't add together. So when we're dealing with variables in algebra, when we're dealing with adding and subtracting, and that's what we're going to be doing in this first week, is just adding and subtracting either positives and negatives, whole numbers, or adding and subtracting what we call like terms. If they are not like terms, 2x plus 3y, I can't add those. It's just going to stay exactly how it is. Don't try to get 5xy because you're adding apples to oranges. You cannot add those together and actually get an answer. So when you see variables in an algebraic expression or an equation, just know that you can only add like terms. So if you had an expression, let's say that we had something where there were multiple terms, and you're going to see things like this where you've got 2x plus 3y plus, let's say 5x, something like that. I can only combine the ones that are like terms. So I've got my x's over here. Those can add together, and I can actually simplify this. 2x's plus 5x's gives me 7x's. And the 2y does not have a like term. I can't combine it to anything else. So this would be a simplified expression right here. So we can add terms that are like, and anything that's not like, it stays separate. So that is it for this first week. We're going to just be looking at adding and subtracting with positives and negatives and combining like terms. You guys have a blessed, God-filled day.